think it's time to start. Good evening, everyone. Afternoon or evening, as you choose to call it. My name is Bruce Matty Weitzman. I'm a professor in the Department of Middle Eastern and African History, and more importantly, for our purposes, I'm the academic head of the International Multidisciplinary Program in the Humanities. And I'd like to get started with this on this festive occasion. On behalf of my distinguished colleagues here at the at the presidential table, as it's called, Dean Corey, Vice Dean Shamir, and Associate Dean Sherman. We'll hear more about them coming up. But on behalf of all of them and also faculty members who are here, friends and families, please welcome the class of 2019. Okay, wonderful, great start for what's going to be a fun and I think also meaningful evening together. Let me begin with a few introductory remarks, and then I'm going to take my role as MC here, and we'll move the program forward. I'd like to begin with a couple of thoughts. This is sort of an equivalent of a college graduation ceremony, even though we know you still have a few minor details to attend to before you officially graduate, but we're calling it college graduation. Now, college graduation ceremonies are usually referred to in the lingo as commencements, a word which points you, our graduating students, to the future as you prepare to commence a new phase in your lives. But let's not rush things. Our gathering tonight is not just about looking to the future, but also marks a time to celebrate your achievements and accomplishments, as well as a moment to reflect on the significant period of time that you have spent here, on the expansion of your intellectual and emotional horizons, on the connections you have made with people from all over the world, and on the process of coping with the myriad challenges of living and studying in this dynamic and contentious little corner of the Eastern Mediterranean region. I know that I speak for all of those involved in the program, faculty, administrators, support staff, when I say how wonderful it is to see your excitement at having reached this day and the pride exhibited by your accompanying family and friends. We share that pride. Traditional Jewish weddings conclude with the breaking of a glass, symbolizing the fact that even at such a joyous moment, the world is not whole, and the work of repairing it, known as tikkun olam, is never done. Now, I don't need to tell you that we are living in especially uncertain and even disturbing times, ones that profoundly challenge the values that underpin the core of a liberal education and the vision of a liberal society. As a historian, I am keenly aware that history, whether micro or macro, global or local, never moves in a straight line and is always heavily shaped by the law of unintended consequences. It's hard enough as historians to understand the past. We don't know the future. And the past keeps changing too. At the same time, I also believe that individual agency still matters, that what people do or do not do counts for something, and hence what they do or do not do shapes our world. A few weeks ago, speaking at the Harvard commencement ceremonies, You've heard of Harvard. It's our friend and competitor across the pond. A few weeks ago, at their commencement ceremonies, the long-serving, soon-to-be retired Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, cogently expressed her thoughts on this subject and delivered a message that I find worthy of sharing. And as follows, she told the assembled graduates, "Take nothing for granted. Our individual liberties are not givens. Democracy is not something we can take for granted. Neither is peace and neither is prosperity. But if we break down the walls that hem us in, if we step out into the open and have the courage to embrace new beginnings, everything is possible." At this point, I'd like to invite the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, Professor Leo Corey, the Bert and Barbara Cohn Professor of History and Philosophy of Science, and a strong supporter of our BA Liberal Arts program, to give his greetings. Professor Corey, Dean Corey.
Good evening, Professor Madi Weitzman, Professor Milad Shamir, Ms. Nira Sherman, dear colleagues in the faculty, dear guests and relatives, and above all, dear students. This is the time of the year when students, teachers, and administrative staff at our faculty meet together in festive academic ceremonies of various kinds. Many academic colloquia are organized with guests coming from abroad. Local academic conferences are organized by graduate students who work on similar disciplines or on similar fields of inquiry. Sometimes we also organize farewell conferences to honor colleagues who are retiring after long and productive academic careers. And there are, of course, the graduation ceremonies in all of our programs of study. Over the last 5 years, the International BA in Liberal Arts at the Entin Faculty of Humanities at Tel Aviv University has been celebrating its end-of-program graduation ceremony. Among all the many ceremonies that we have in campus, this is certainly unique in its spirit, and it is particularly colorful and joyful. At Tel Aviv University and at the Entin Faculty of Humanities, we are all particularly glad and proud to be able to celebrate with you in this graduation ceremony and to be able to watch this selected group of talented young people who from now on are also our ambassadors to the world. My dear friends, young friends, it is customary nowadays to talk about the crisis in the humanities. But I find it hard to imagine that the students of our international program will be speaking about the years that they spent here at the Faculty of Humanities at Tel Aviv University in terms of experiencing some kind of crisis. The Hebrew word for humanities, as you probably know, is Mada'ei Ruach, namely that part of the academic world that is devoted to the study of the human spirit in all of its manifestations and all that this spirit has created throughout history. In these terms, it may be fair to say that rather than a crisis in the humanities, there is indeed a crisis, but it's a crisis in the human spirit and what it is creating nowadays in the world at large. Unfortunately, we can also speak about a worrisome crisis of the spirit in our own society, the Israeli society. Over the last few years, in particular, we have witnessed truly disturbing political and social and cultural processes that challenge some of our most basic values and beliefs about the meaning of an open democracy and the role of academia and the media in our society. This is a global process with particular manifestations in each local context. Terms such as fake news or alternative facts have become standard, and more worrisome, they are even accepted as a matter of course, with little resistance and sometimes even with a smile. Such concepts manifest themselves in the actions of our politicians, public opinion makers, and cultural icons, and are present in our day-to-day lives. And we have yet to understand their deep meaning if we want to be able to meet the challenge that they pose. In the Israeli context, we have witnessed unprecedented attacks on the freedom of speech in the media, in the arts, and quite recently also in the academic context. Also, and perhaps even more so, the autonomy of our judicial system is under heavy attack. I believe that an education in the liberal arts continues to be one of the most efficient and effective weapons with which young people can hope to start their adult lives in this very challenging world, and that we are experiencing nowadays. Israeli youngsters typically start their studies at the ages of 22 to 24, and in these circumstances, they face some critical questions when the time comes for choosing a course of studies. Most of you, my dear students, did not have to face exactly the same dilemmas given the age that you were able to start your studies. And the case is that you chose to study in our program. I am sure that you do not regret it for a moment. I think, moreover, that in retrospect, in a few years from now, you will be able to look back with satisfaction and to realize that this may have been one of the most crucial and successful decisions that you took in this part of your life. Today, in this group that is finishing their course of studies today, we have representatives of many countries, and I think it's interesting for the audience to hear a little bit about that. We have 14 students from the United States, one from Mexico, one from Mongolia, one from Angola, one from Romania, one from Finland, two from China, one from Japan, two from East Jerusalem, one from Turkey, one from Lithuania, one from Brazil, one from France, and one from South Korea. Welcome you all, and congratulations. And I myself, although I have been here for 42 years, but I also come from an exotic country called Venezuela. So I feel like you.
Becoming more exotic.
Exotic. Yeah, at that time it was less exotic. But so in the program, we have now 104 students in the first and second year, besides those who are finishing today. And again, from many countries: Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, Guatemala, Hungary, India, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Japan, South Korea, Latvia, Mexico, Morocco, Norway, Peru, Puerto Rico, Spain, Turkey, United Kingdom, USA, Uzbekistan, and Zimbabwe. And we are really glad to have you all here. And we really expect next year to even have more students to grow. The program is growing. We are accepting, and people are coming to us from other countries such as Norway, Argentina, Italy, and Singapore. So the program is truly international, and we are very glad about that. At this point, I want to thank, on behalf of us, the faculty. You will have time also to thank later on, but on behalf of the faculty, I want to thank Ayelet and Seela for the wonderful work. Of course, without which there would be no program at all. I want to thank, on the academic side, Professor Bruce Madi-Weitzman and Robin Shohat-Begon for having carried out a great program abiding by the highest academic standards. I am sure that the team and all the teachers that you met at our faculty have provided to our students with the tools that will prove decisive in the challenging and interesting big world out there. We believe that we also provided you with inspiration and that you will take active part in supporting an atmosphere of open, critical dialogue that will foster tolerance and will reject violence in the Israeli society or wherever you choose to establish yourself. Let me tell you also that the keynote speaker today is Professor Milet Shamir, who was the founder of this program. And over the last 4 years, he has served very successfully as vice dean in this faculty. Plus, she's a wonderful speaker. So there could be no better choice than her for addressing you today. And I apologize to her and to you that I will not be able to stay until she speaks and to listen to her. But she told me that she will then tell me what she said. So, dear students and dear families, we wish you success wherever you go. And don't forget where it all started, here at the International BA in Liberal Arts program at Tel Aviv University. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dean Corey. Now, before we move on to more speeches and more speeches and more speeches, we are fortunate to have a musical interlude planned, and better to perform than some of our talented students. So I'd like to invite Mr. Harrison Day, guitarist, Mr. Itamar Tzur, bassist, and on vocals, Jamila Prangid Oliveira. And they're going to do 2 numbers, one now and one a bit afterwards. The first number sounds like it's going to be really great. It's called Fever by Otis Blackwell and Eddie Cooley.
Never know how much I love you. Never know how much I care. When you put your arms around me, I get a fever that's so hard to bear. You give me fever when you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight, a fever in the morning, fever all through the night. Sun lights up the daytime, moon lights up the night. I light up when you call my name, and you know I'm gonna treat you right. You give me fever when you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight, a fever in the morning, fever all through the night. Everybody's got the fever. That is something you all know. Fever isn't such a new thing. Fever started long ago. Romeo loved Juliet. Juliet, she felt the same. When he put his arms around her, he said, Julie, baby, you're my flame. Thou give us fever. When we kiss a fever, yeah, I'm bound for soon. A fever, I'm a fire. Fever, yeah, I burn for soon. Captain Smith and Pocahontas had a really mad affair. When her daddy tried to kill him, she said, Daddy, oh, don't you dare. He gives me fever with his kisses, fever when he holds me tight, a fever, I'm his missus. Daddy, won't you treat him right? Now you've listened to my story. he's the point that I have made. Chicks were born to give you fever, be it Fahrenheit or centigrade, we give you fever. When we kiss you, fever when I hold you tight. A fever till your sister, what a lovely way to burn. What a lovely way to burn. What a lovely way to burn.
Wow, one more time, let's give it up for Jamelia, Harrison, and Itamar. Woo! They'll be back, we promise. Okay. Before introducing our featured speaker, I'd like to also echo Dean Corey's remarks and recognize a number of people who have been and continue to be influential in our program's well-being. First of all, I want to thank all of our faculty, particularly those who are scattered throughout here. Thank you for attending, and thank you all for what you've done. I mean, without your teaching, without your teachers, there's no program, obviously, and I want to thank them all, those who are here and those who couldn't. Dean Corey already mentioned Dr. Robin Shochet-Begon, and I want to echo that. Robin, thank you. Not only a respected member of our faculty, but plays an indispensable role as the program's academic advisor, as well as executing assorted other indispensable duties. I want to thank Ms. Nira Sherman, here at the head table, Associate Dean for Administration, and her whole team at the Humanities faculty, particularly Anat Lisak, who together expertly guide us through the labyrinth of the university bureaucracy, and I'll just leave it at that. A word of thanks to Maureen Meyer, Director of Tau International, and her team, lecturers, also administrators and counselors with whom we collaborate fruitfully every single day of the year. Tseela Prasov, who joined our staff this year and infused the program with both good cheer and professionalism, and we wish you well, and we're looking forward to having you back at some successful in your next phase. And finally, of course, the program's director, heart and soul, 24/7, the indomitable, indomitable Ayala Chacham. Thank you. As you already heard, our guest speaker tonight is Professor Milet Shamir. Professor Shamir is currently Vice Dean of the Humanities for Academic Affairs, as well as head of the university's American Studies track, and former head of the Department of English and American Studies. Professor Shamir earned her PhD from Brandeis University in Waltham, and Massachusetts. And she's been a visiting scholar at Duke University and at the University of Texas, Austin. Professor Shamir's multitude of scholarly publications focus on U.S. literature and culture in the 19th century. She has received numerous teaching awards as well. Last but not least, as Dean Corey already told you, Professor Shamir founded this program back in 2012, served as its academic director until 2016, and continues to closely accompany our developments and contribute to its well-being. We're honored and privileged to have her here with us, and I suspect that this is a special moment for her as well. Professor Shamir.
Hello, everyone. Dean Corey, who just left, I'll still acknowledge him. Professor Maddie Weitzman, thank you for the lovely introduction. Ms. Nira Shirman, friends and family members of the graduating class, and of course, dear soon-to-be graduates of the liberal arts program. Wow, it's a great privilege to be part of this end of program celebration. And I'm deeply honored to have been asked and invited to speak to you tonight. I want to begin, however, with a word of warning. While I may appear to you as a fairly normal person, I actually spend a large amount of my time talking with imaginary people from past centuries. Such is the fate of many of us literary critics. We live part of our lives in the made-up worlds of old works of fiction. And sometimes these worlds feel more authentic and more truthful to us than day-to-day realities. And because I tend to see the world as filtered through novels, when I look at your bright and joyful faces here tonight, and the faces of your proud families and your friends, this graduation ceremony feels to me a little bit like a particularly satisfying ending to a long and interesting book. Let's face it, your 3-year adventure here at Tel Aviv University had all the makings of a great book. A lively urban setting, an international cast of characters, life-altering choices, classroom conflicts, dorm room dramas, intellectual epiphanies. And tonight, finally, in front of your families and friends, the plot reaches its fulfillment and resolution. You guys have made it. If Jane Austen were alive and with us today, she may have possibly written, and this is a riff on the closing line of her novel, Emma, the wishes, the hopes, the confidence, the prediction of the small band of true friends and loving family who witnessed the ceremony were fully answered in the perfect happiness of the graduating class of 2019. The end. So I wish to spend the 15 minutes or so that I was given to think with you tonight a little bit about great novels, about their endings, and about what these endings may mean for our own lives. I intend to try to persuade you of two things. First, that each and every one of you is in fact a hero or heroine of an exciting novel. And this is true whether you're someone who goes to bed every evening with a book, or whether the last literary text you've read was for Dr. Frommer's Modernity and its discontents in the first year of your studies. And secondly, I will want to suggest to you that the kind of novel that you choose your life to be, and especially how you imagine that novel's ending, can matter a great deal. And it can, in fact, determine the course and the meaning of your life. But first things first, when I say that you and I and everyone that we know are heroes and heroines of novels, what I mean is simply that modern life has for over 2 centuries now become unintelligible without novels. Ever since the novel emerged as the most dominant and powerful cultural form of the Western world, sometime in the second half of the 18th century, it has not only taken on the role of expressing middle-class life on all its intricate detail, but it has also given shape to this life. 200 years ago, bourgeois people became addicted to novels. They became addicted not only because they found themselves in novels, but because novels taught them how to lead their lives. To see how this happened, let's travel back in time to the century before novels became so popular and influential. I'd like you to imagine, for a brief moment, that you are a young person of the middling sorts, those who will eventually become the middle class, to which most of us here belong. So imagine that you're a young person living in the 17th century, in 17th century Europe or colonial America. Let's say that you're a man. We'll call you Wilhelm. And you were born in a village to a family of farmers or artisans. Chances are that you will die in that very same village. You're currently an apprentice working alongside your father. Maybe he's a silversmith or a brewer. Overall, you're a pretty lucky guy. You don't have to worry about your career at all. In fact, the word career has not yet been invented. You know exactly where you're headed. Unless, God forbid, some disruptive force will intervene, like a war or an epidemic, you will work by your father's side for several decades until one day when he is gone, you will replace him and train your own son to do the same in due course. And what if you're a young woman? Let's imagine now that you are a 17th century small-town lassie by the name of Jane. Your life, too, is fairly and reassuringly stable. Alongside your mother, you contribute to the household's income by making candles or baking bread or weaving textiles. Just as she had years ago, you'll probably soon marry a young man of your station, someone who you've known all your life, from your neighborhood or surrounding villages. You'll have a few children together and hope that some of them will survive to adulthood. And you will teach your daughters to lead a life pretty much identical to yours. So when we imagine the lives of 17th century Wilhelm and Jane, we can easily see why there was not much room for novels in their world. Not only because they probably had little inclination and probably no leisure for reading, but because their lives were so utterly predictable, so fully shaped by tradition and by the authority of their parents. Wilhelm's fate and Jane's were not really their own to determine, but prescribed for them by the circumstances of their birth. Their coming-of-age stories were in that sense hardly stories at all. From our modern perspective, their lives seem mind-numbingly boring, certainly not the stuff good novels are made of. It would take a full century and 3 revolutions to shake up the lives of Wilhelm and Jane and to transform them into novelistic plots. The first was an economic revolution. The 18th century, as we all know, witnessed the emergence of modern market societies organized by capitalist principles. One of these principles was free circulation of money, of goods, and of course of people. In other words, mobility was introduced into the lives of the middling sorts, both physical mobility and social mobility. A young man like Wilhelm would now be incentivized to give up his family trade, bid farewell to his anxious parents, and go seek his fortune in faraway places in the hope of rising up in the world. The second revolution was ideological and political. During the 18th century, Enlightenment ideas about individuals and their rights spread like wildfires all through Europe and North America, eventually finding dramatic political expression in the American and the French revolutions. These new ideas taught young people that the highest authority to which they owe allegiance is not their father, not even their king, perhaps not even God, it is to their own selves. Autonomy, which literally means self-law, was now understood as the right to shape one's own fate, to become the author of one's own life. Each one of us, wrote Thomas Jefferson in the US Declaration of Independence, has an unalienable right not only to life and liberty, but to pursue his or her happiness. But before these 2 revolutions, the capitalist revolution and the democratic revolution, could be fully manifested culturally, before they could turn into novels, a third, less visible but no less important revolution had to take place. Let's call it the psychological revolution. When capitalism opened up a wide new world of possibilities for young persons in the West, and when the Enlightenment gave these young persons the right to pursue these possibilities, the very notion of personhood had changed. Men and women were no longer defined primarily by external measures, your social class, your family, your connections, your trade. Increasingly, men and women were defined by internal ones, your dreams, your hopes, your aspirations, your desires. And it is in exploring this interior landscape, no less than the exterior one, that the novel will specialize. Think of the titles of some of the greatest novels of the 19th century. Great Expectations, Lost Illusions, The Awakening. These books and many more tell us of a hero or a heroine who dreams, who desires, who aspires, who expects. The novel became the primary cultural vehicle of the modern age, not only because it followed the physical movement of individuals in a world that has suddenly become open and fluid, but because it probed the psychological depths of these individuals and thus taught its readers to hope and to aspire. Novels didn't just describe modern life, they created individuals suited for modern life. The world that the novel made was one in which stability has become discontent, in which young men and women dream and then go out in the world to pursue their dreams. What has this world done to our 17th century Wilhelm and Jane? Well, village Wilhelm from the 17th century was now metamorphosed into Wilhelm Meister, the hero of Goethe's late 18th century masterpiece, often considered to be the first coming-of-age novel. It tells the story of a young man whose father expects to become a businessman like himself, but Wilhelm has other plans. And because the liberal arts program at Tel Aviv University has not yet been established, instead he leaves his family behind and joins a troupe of traveling actors in pursuit of his dreams. Over the course of a few hundred pages, we follow Wilhelm's adventures, trials, and tribulations as he seeks his place in the world. He finally finds happiness and settles down with a wife and son into a respectable bourgeois existence. And what about Jane? 17th century, small-town Jane was transformed with modernity into Jane Eyre, the heroine of Bronte's famous novel, A Female Coming of Age. Orphaned and alone in the world, poor Jane Eyre is removed from her foster family to a boarding school. Soon she begins to travel England seeking livelihood as a governess. Like Wilhelm Meister, she is faced with a number of challenges and hardships. Like him, she will finally find happiness in marrying the person she loves, a man who importantly is from a higher social class than herself. Life is a journey, both Wilhelm Meister and Jane Eyre showed their young readers. Don't stay put. The road may be difficult, but it is your road, and there's a beacon shining somewhere in the distance. You may err, and you may suffer, but things will work out in the end. And this brings us to the topic of endings. The literary critic Franco Moretti, who has written wonderfully about the rise of the coming-of-age novel in Europe, has pointed out that from early on, novels tended to end in one of two typical ways. We will call them today the closed ending and the open ending. Novels with closed endings are those whose entire plot leads towards a conventional and a predictable resolution. Marriage is the most common ending of this type. The hero, or more frequently the heroine, finds her soulmate and they finally wed as we, the readers, put the book down with a sigh of satisfaction. Jane Eyre is a good example of this ending. So are Emma and Pride and Prejudice and practically all of Jane Austen's novels and a myriad other 19th century novels from England, America, and France. But this kind of ending still survives in the 21st century as well. It remains very popular, even if it has traveled away from the pages of novels into the realm of film and television. Think of any romantic comedy that you've ever watched, or think of reality shows like The Bachelorette, and here I'm confessing my own guilty pleasure, or Wedding at First Glance, which is my new obsession, or First Sight. In all these cases, coming of age is imagined as a single track towards fulfillment in marriage. The reader or viewer doesn't wonder what will happen in the end, but how it will happen. And once it happens and vows are exchanged, the plot comes full stop. From here on end, we are led to believe the heroine will simply live happily ever after. With the open endings, by contrast, there is no happy resolution. We leave the hero or heroine in the midst of their adventures, with future possibilities still wide open. It is up to us to imagine where in the world he or she will go next, after we turn the last page of the book. I'm thinking of Huckleberry Finn lighting out to the territories at the end of his travels on the Mississippi River, or Holden Caulfield starting his life over at the end of Catcher on the Rye, or think of Westerns, those of you who still watch them, where the last camera shot is of a cowboy riding off towards a setting sun. Think of Jack Kerouac's classic novel On the Road, or any road movie that you know or have seen. They all end with a sense that the adventure is just beginning. In the open-ended story, the reader is denied the relief of closure, but his or her interest in the lives of the hero remains active. We put the book aside, dying to know what great things are yet in store. So the question is, of course, why did these two ways of ending a novel develop? To understand this, and here's Franco Moretti again, we have to go back to the connection between the emergence of the novel and the rise of modernity. The modern world created through the capitalist, democratic, and psychological revolutions of the 18th century is one that was both valued and feared. And the kind of change that it introduced was both admired and caused tremendous anxiety. Modern societies relied upon the new mobility and autonomy of individuals who have great expectations and refuse to stay put. But at the same time, this new and dynamic way of life was also a source of tremendous worries. Can society survive these revolutions? Can the social order be preserved when each of its members is a free-floating, self-regulating atom? Or will the world devolve into anarchy? Open-ending novels expressed a desire for perpetual mobility and change. They embraced the values of modernity. Close-ending novels, by contrast, offer reassurance to their readers. They promise them that despite the fast and dynamic pace of the modern world, stability will be preserved. Young people may roam the world for a while, but ultimately they will settle down. Things will work out. In that sense, it is precisely the combination of and balance between the two possible novel endings that make the modern world inhabitable. I just want to, in closing, put this idea in slightly different terms. Let's go back to the motto of the Enlightenment, penned by Thomas Jefferson. All individuals, he wrote, are endowed by their Creator with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We take this observation for granted. Only rarely do we notice that this list of rights actually contains an internal contradiction, a tension. What I mean to say is that liberty and happiness are not necessarily compatible goals. Being free from one's family, from one's social obligations, from the past, from tradition, doesn't necessarily mean being happy. Conversely, achieving happiness often means giving up your freedom. Think of the happily ever after of the marriage ending in Jane Eyre or in Wilhelm Meister. They may have found bliss in settling down with their spouses, but at the price of giving up their exciting travels and adventures. It is both the impossible tension and the necessary balance between freedom and happiness, mobility and stability, open possibilities and definite goals that novel endings capture for us. Dear soon-to-be graduates, the Wilhelms and the Janes of 2019. What kind of a novel is your life going to be? What plot will you construct for yourselves after you leave behind this little village of Tel Aviv University, your home for the past 3 years? We encourage young people today to have a definite goal, to choose a single path, to know where they're going and how to get there. Choose your university wisely, we tell them. Choose the right major. Follow the road on to graduate school and to an internship, to a prestigious career. And in the end, you will find success and security and live happily ever after. But if I've learned anything from the many hours I spent reading novels, it is this lesson. And I give it to you at the risk of getting your parents just a little bit upset. As you move forward toward your happily ever after resolution, think of your life also as an open-ended book. Pursue a definite goal, yes, but always keep an open mind and an open heart. Go down the road you have chosen, but don't rule out shifting to other roads that will fork and diverge and cross your path. Seek happiness, yes, but do not sacrifice freedom. After all, that is what your undergraduate studies at the liberal arts program were all about, right? I mean, you chose a major, true, but you continue to travel in 3 other tracks, floating in and out of several intellectual worlds. What the liberal arts degree has done for you above all, that's my opinion, is open up the world. May you continue to travel in this world, writing your life as a fascinating novel, one in which finally freedom and happiness will be reconciled. The end.
thank you, Professor Shamir, for those apt words. Both a closing ending and an opening as well. Take the road not taken, and I'm reminded of one of my athletic heroes, the mythical Yogi Berra, who said, this is for Americans, who said once, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Our next on our program, very excited about our next the next phase. Our class speaker and valedictorian, philosophy major, minor in Middle Eastern Studies, made the Dean's List 2 years running from Sao Paulo, Brazil. Without further ado, Naomi Sutton.
Hi. Dear Dean of Humanities, who left.
We'll report to you.
Thank you. Head of the International Program, dear professors, our immensely supportive BA staff, Ayelet, Tsela, and Robin. Dear families, friends, and of course, dear graduating class of 2019.
She'll be back one day.
Firstly, I would like to express what an honor it is to be standing here, giving this speech. Every single student sitting here is so brilliant and accomplished, and I am so extremely appreciative to be here as this year's valedictorian. I don't even know where to start. It seems like it was just yesterday that we all got here, nervously waiting outside the liberal arts office, trying to figure out our schedules, to understand how Moodle works, and anxious to meet each other. Regardless of how excited I was to start college, nothing I imagined could ever compare to what it actually was. Here, I had the best 3 years of my life. Though my decision to study at Tel Aviv University was a bit last minute, looking back, choosing to come to Israel and joining this program was the best decision I've ever made. It was here that I discovered my passion for philosophy and ethics. I feel so lucky and grateful that I was able to attend a program where all the professors and educators are so dedicated to making sure the students thrive. I would like to extend my special thanks to Dr. Sarit Sened, who with endless patience and support has encouraged me to learn more about the field and has been instrumental in helping me with my plans for the future. I've had opportunities here that never in a million years I expected could be available to me for my undergraduate studies, and for that, I'm eternally thankful. It was also here in Tel Aviv University that I realized I too want to be an educator. Because I came here so young, I was only 17, looking back, I believe I had a sense of arrogance that young people often do, believing they know themselves and everything better than anyone. My first months here proved how wrong I was. And though I'm probably leaving my studies more uncertain about everything that I was before, I am, after all, a philosophy major, I can at least now see how my horizons were broadened and how much more receptive to new ideas, different ideologies, and change I am now. But enough about the program now. I want to talk a bit about the graduates here, the stars of the night. Coming here, I wasn't sure what to expect. Though I certainly thought there would be some diversity in our class, I was surprised with how different we all are. This class is people from all over the world. From Mongolia to Angola, from China to America, we have students from all over the world here. Like me, many of you came to Israel alone, leaving your families and home countries behind. For a few weeks before the program started, I remembered feeling terrified of how the next 3 years were going to play out. But I quickly realized there was no reason for me to worry. As I stand here, 3 years later, I look at all of you, and to me, you're all family. I've met some of the most intelligent, funny, interesting, and diverse people here, And though I'm certainly happy to be graduating, I am at the same time so sad to say goodbye to so many of you. But I'm also excited. More than anything, I'm excited to see where the future will take us. In this room, there is so much potential and excellence. Just looking at all of you now, I can see there will be amazing journalists, psychologists, entrepreneurs, and even engineers. Shout out to our very own Avery. So to me, the future is so exciting because if all the young people who are graduating and joining the workforce are even half as talented as our graduating class, the future will be remarkable. I learned so much with all of you, both inside and outside the classroom. So more than anything, I'm thankful. Thankful to be in a program so dedicated to its students. Thankful to have met people who taught me how to be more accepting, open-minded, and more aware. Thankful for all the memories I've had here, laying on the grass, getting coffee from Neto, complaining about having to walk all the way to Rosenberg, that I will cherish forever. Thankful for knowing that as I stand here, finishing this program and giving this speech, I am a better, kinder, and more thoughtful person than I was 3 years ago. A lot of people ask me about what my plans are after this degree. Many are also surprised and ask me why exactly I want to pursue a career in academia, as it's not an easy path. My answer is always the same. Education has an immense power to change both the world and its people. I think it's the most important tool we have at our disposal now to build a better world. As Brazilian philosopher and educator Paulo Freire wrote, education is the practice of freedom, the means by which men and women deal critically and creatively with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of their world. So I tell them I want to be a professor because I want to change the world, and I believe education can really help and change people. At least, I know this program changed me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Naomi. Wow. Well, it's time for some more music. I invite our distinguished trio, Jamilia, Harrison, and Itamar, and in the spirit of what we just heard from a Brazilian student quoting a Brazilian philosopher, now we're going to have a piece by the Brazilian musician Cartola, Preciso me encontrar.
Deixe-me ir, preciso andar. Vou por aí a procurar. Ir pra não chorar. Deixe-me ir, preciso andar. Vou por aí a procurar. Ir pra não chorar. Quero assistir ao sol nascer, ver as águas dos rios correr, ouvir os pássaros cantar. Eu quero nascer, quero viver. Deixe-me ir, preciso andar. Vou por aí a procurar, ir pra não chorar. Quero assistir ao sol nascer, ver as águas dos rios correr, ouvir os pássaros cantar. Eu quero nascer, quero viver. Deixe-me ir, preciso andar. Vou por aí a procurar, ir pra não chorar. Se alguém por mim perguntar e eu só vou voltar quando eu me encontrar. Quando eu me encontrar. Quando eu me encontrar.
Thank you again. Thank you again to our talented musicians, Itamar, Harrison, and Jamilio. And now, for the concluding portion of our lovely event, I give you Ayala Chacha.
Dear students, let's do this. Badam Dodge Tetzenbart. Thinking outside the box is how we do things here in the liberal arts program. TJ, this is for you. It's a graduating present. Biha Eliezer. Just be. It's okay, continue doing your thing for the rest of your life. This is for you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Boni Atalia. Coelho Martha. Finally get to be your height. Congratulations. Davis Schendel. Day Harrison. Friedman Beth. Yalla Bethany. Jacobson Anne-Marie. Lee Victoria. Lu Yaling. Mendel Sydney. Nassereddin Elham. Did you see that? And Nassereddin Rafiq. Ochayon Emily. Wathauser Ben. Rochberg Sharon. Satonomi.
Victoria.
Warren, Emily. ירדני רחלי. And last but not least, Juliette and Monica. Dear class of 2019, just saying that sends shivers down my spine. How did we get here so quickly? Are we even ready for this? Orientation Day really doesn't seem like such a long time ago. Back then, you were all a little bit scared, a little bit confused, but very excited about the future. Today, surrounded by your friends, your professors, your peers, and loved ones, you might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed again, but remember that graduation is not the end, but simply the beginning of a new and exciting chapter, and all of us here can't wait to see what you get up to next. Stay strong, stay positive, and stay in touch with us and each other. Now stand up for the obligatory tossing of the caps in the air shot when our professor is ready. Are you guys ready?
Hi.
3. Wait, when I
ready.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Congratulations.
Thank you all. I think one more hand is deserved for all the graduates. Have a great evening, everyone.